Have you ever met someone who just doesn't explain themselves? They make a decision, they stand by it, and when someone questions them, they simply smile and move on. No lengthy justification, no defensive email, no 3-paragraph text explaining their why. And for some reason, that drives the rest of us absolutely crazy. But here's what's wild: that person, psychologically, they might be the healthiest one in the room. We live in a culture that's obsessed with explanation. We feel this invisible pressure to justify our choices, why we left that job, why we said no to the invitation, why we ordered the salad or didn't. And if we don't explain, we feel guilty, like we owe the world a footnote for every decision we make. But where does that come from? A lot of it traces back to something psychologists call external validation dependency. This deep-wired need to have our choices approved by others before we feel okay about them ourselves. Your brain, especially if you grew up in an environment where your decisions were constantly questioned, learned early that explanation equals safety. If you could justify yourself well enough, you could avoid conflict, earn love, stay accepted. It was a survival strategy, and honestly, it worked for a while. But here's the quiet cost. Every time you over-explain, you're sending your own nervous system a subtle message. I don't fully trust myself. You're outsourcing your inner authority to whoever's listening. And the more you do it, the more you need it. Now think about that person who doesn't explain. What do they actually have that you might not yet? Psychologists point to something called internal locus of control, the belief that your life is guided by your own decisions, not by others' opinions of them. People with a strong internal locus tend to experience less anxiety, more resilience, and, this is the beautiful part, deeper self-respect. Not arrogance, self-respect. There's a massive difference. Not explaining yourself isn't about being cold or dismissive. It's about trusting that your choices don't need a courtroom defense to be valid. It's the quiet confidence of someone who has done the inner work and knows their own values well enough that external approval becomes optional. Think of it like this: a tree doesn't explain why it grows toward the sun. It just does, because that's its nature. The people in your life who seem unbothered, grounded, hard to rattle, they've usually stopped performing their decisions for an audience. They've made peace with the fact that some people won't understand, and that's genuinely okay. Now, this doesn't mean you should never communicate. Healthy relationships absolutely need context and honesty. But there's a difference between explaining because you want to connect and explaining because you're terrified of being misunderstood. One comes from love, the other comes from fear. So here's the shift worth sitting with today. What if your decisions were already enough, exactly as they are, without the footnotes? What if the version of you that stops over-justifying is actually more trustworthy, more magnetic, and more at peace? You don't owe anyone a full breakdown of your inner world. And slowly learning that, really feeling that, might just be one of the most freeing things you ever do. If that hits somewhere deep, drop a comment below. I'd love to know what decision you've been over-explaining lately. And if you want more of this kind of psychology, you know what to do.